All right, let's talk about what you do if you come across a child that has nasal BiPAP or CPAP in place. And what you can see here is this will be connected to a ventilator. There's a nasal interface, and then a bonnet is what they call this. The bonnet is holding it into place, it's secured, and oftentimes there'll be a chin strap that keeps the mouth closed to minimize the leak. And then they're using this either as CPAP or BiPAP with settings just like you'd expect on CPAP or BiPAP. And we can hook up to this if it's working great for the patient. You can also transition to high flow nasal cannula, but it's a super similar therapy. But sometimes if the kid's doing great on this, it's just easiest to keep it going. And so what you'll need is the neonatal circuit in order to connect up to it. But you don't need a flow sensor and you don't need a Y. You actually are going to remove the inspiratory and expiratory limb, and you'll plug those into the inspiratory and expiratory ports of the flexi trunk. Now, they're exactly the same size, and so you need an adapter to get from this Fisher and Paykel interface to our setup. And here's where you find the adapter. The kit for the flexi trunk comes from Fisher and Paykel with the adapters in it. Now, these typically get thrown away because it gets hooked up to a Fisher and Paykel circuit. But if they haven't kept them, you could ask for a new flexi trunk setup and just steal those two little adapters. They're just little clear plastic adapters, and you'll insert them on your circuit and now it'll connect up perfectly. But if you don't have a flow sensor, you need something to sense the pressures. And so that's the next component you're going to need. We're going to take off the flow sensor, and we're not going to use that. And in every neonatal circuit, you have this little package, which we almost never use, and it's used for this situation. It's just the blue line that connects to the blue pressure port, and it will then in turn connect to the side of the nasal interface, and it's going to measure your pressures right there. So before we switch them, what we'll need to do is calibrate our new circuit. So you're going to click on modes, and there are only two modes that you can use with this setup: neonatal nasal CPAP and neonatal nasal CPAP PC. You can think of this as CPAP and this as BiPAP. So this is one pressure all the time. This is a inspiratory and an expiratory pressure with a rate. We'll do that one because there's a little more to it. So once we click confirm, we'll choose the respiratory rate and our I time. In this case, we'll just set this to say 4/4 and 21% oxygen. So those are our settings. That should give us 8/4 for the BiPAP. When we hit confirm, the next screen it goes to is the circuit test. And you'll notice that the flow sensor test is gone. We just have a circuit test. So we press the circuit test, and we don't have to flip the flow sensor or do anything like that. It's just going to run its calibration. And when it's complete, we're ready to apply it to the patient. All right, so now that it's complete, we'll apply it to the patient. What we're going to see is we have inspiratory, expiratory, and pressure sensor. The pressure sensor goes on the side of the trunk. We'll disconnect them from their ventilator. We'll connect them to our ventilator and hit start ventilation. It does not matter which one, the blue or the white, the inspiratory or the expiratory, goes to. It's going to work the same either way. Now what we have here is we have a peak pressure, which should be close to what we're adding here. And then we have a PEEP or a CPAP. In this case, we have a pretty big leak. So sometimes if you don't have a chin strap, a pacifier can help address that leak a little bit. And you'll see our pressures come up a little bit, and our high flow warning went away. This is just flow rate, just like you'd expect to see on a high flow cannula. And it's going to increase the flow rate in order to reach the target pressures that you've set on the ventilator. Since there's no flow sensor, there's no flow waveform, there's very few alarms, there's no apnea detection. It's a very, very simple approach to doing nasal CPAP or BiPAP.